Always find joy in the smallest of things. That is what we found in you. Oh, 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 you are joy. Never give up when the going gets rough. Hope is everything you need. Oh, 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 you are hope. Oh, 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 you are hope. And don't forget you're not alone. The Holy Spirit wants to guide you on.
Hi, my name is Andre. We have our daughter. Her name was Sydney. She died by suicide on April 4, 2018. When this happened, our lives, my family, my life, rest of my family and friends completely changed because of the impact that Sydney had in our lives and the impact that her death caused to all of us. Sydney was a great kid, at the time 18. She was an athlete, volleyball athlete, great kids, good grades, friends, very active in school with different events that she used to help all the time. During 2 years before she passed, we started kind of noticing some change in behavior. For example, she started suffering anxiety attacks. And at the beginning, we just kind of took it as like, well, she's normal teenager, pressure, schools, technology, media, the news. But she started making some changes that we started to kind of worry about. And we talk, but it was kind of hard to get that from her. The last time that I saw her having a real big panic attack, it was on a volleyball tournament. She was completely blank. It was that stare up to the air, that stare that I don't know what's going on. And it was so hard as a parent just to see her like that. I end up talking to her. We end up just talking about anything else but the games. It was just we talk about the ocean, about our vacations, about life. The hardest part for me is if you have a kid or you have a situation that you need to talk to somebody, look for somebody to talk. Don't just go with your phone and text anybody, I love you guys, and leave it there. The media, phones, texting doesn't help because when you text, there's no emotion. And sadly, that case, I see it happen many times with kids locally have texted somebody saying, I love you guys. You got to reply back or no reply instead of a phone call or instead of a visit. If you receive a text like that, check on that person. Not just a text, call, visit, go see what's going on. Because you never know what the last words will be, or you never know that your words to your friend or family member will mean that really could save a life. To continue helping in memory of Sydney and carry her spirit and her good heart, we created a foundation called Swing for Sydney Foundation. It's a local nonprofit foundation that we help the local schools, high school programs, local schools to bring people or do activities to help the kids. Talking about mental health, talking about bullying, or do events that can help the kids to work together. Because I know that will be something that Sydney want my family, her sisters to do, just to keep helping others the way she did. There's an Urdu phrase that I learned. It says, drop by drop, a river is formed. Sydney used to be that drop that used to help a lot of kids when she helped in school, when she helped me train kids, when she helped her friends. So keep that in mind when you help a person that is in pain. Remember, drop by drop, a river is formed. Every little bit that you add to somebody's life help them to grow or get bigger. Just, I don't want to see any other kids in this life suffer the way that my daughter was suffering. And I also don't want to see more families suffering because of suicide. And suicide had become a big thing that is affecting so many families and lives. So remember, talk. Look at your members, family members. Let them know that you're there for them. Don't ignore a small comment, because that small comment could be the last one, and sadly, in their lives. And you don't want to remember them by that. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that that we can continue to help and continue this path to help others that need support, so their mental state is in check and we continue to help others.
Good afternoon. How are you? My name is Cheryl Duncan, the founder of Jadine Foundation. I started this foundation in honor of my daughter, which died by suicide 8 years ago, January 30th, 2012. It was a very horrific time. To that 2 years, we spent a lot of time with mental health, with depression, anxiety, in and out of the hospitals. She attempted twice with medications, but she'd always say she'd never hurt herself. But on that particular day is when she sent me a text. I took my dad's gun. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I love you. Goodbye. Well, I didn't believe any of that because she'd said she'd never hurt herself. But as I drove up to the house and I saw the policemen and everybody, I prayed that she would still be alive. But as I went into the house, she wasn't. Very devastating, very hurting. She had left the house and gone up to the bayou to die by suicide. She had posted on Twitter. She was very involved with social media. And that was something that I was not involved with. Her brother and her friends were, but they never really saw this coming because she smiled. If you see on the poster and just different things, Ashley had a beautiful smile. And we never thought that she really wanted to die this bad, because not being involved with social media like we were, and some of the friends she had disconnected, and she had posted on Twitter that I finally got a gun. And that was really hurting. But as all the time with her death and up until November 2012, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention had a walk, and friends had shared to me about that. And they were doing one in Cincinnati, her cousins. But the Lord said, you've got to do something. And people kept saying, you need to do something. I said, how could I do something? My child died. What would that be any good? So we talked at the table that day, and before you know it, we'd all come together with different friends and family and people that had known, and we came together and we talked, and we started about, let's increase the teen suicide prevention community awareness about depression and anxiety, that it is real. So much is today of 2020, there was nothing like this in 2012, 8 years ago. I felt we could get over this, but through one thing about families, her father did not want to do counseling, didn't believe in it, and she begged him to come. And we wanted to do it as a family, because if you don't do it as a family, it hurts a lot. You need to have everybody engaged on board. And you have to believe that you have an issue. When you go to the hospital, when you take the medicine, I do have a problem. I'm a little different, but people say, well, you're crazy, you're not going to get a job. Nobody's going to hire you when you talk about, I got mental health problems. And mental illness is different than mental wellness. But through her social worker at Bel Air High School, she tried, and she had counseling with her. But with all that we did, you must get help. You can call 911, but please tell them that you have a mental episode going on so that they can send out a certain team called the CERT, the Crisis Intervention Team. And those people are trained to come help you deal with your loved one and help you. And the reason why you really need to tell the police that you have a mental health situation going on, you don't want anything to happen that could cause them to get in a fight or shoot them, or you want to be upfront with what's going on. You also have to, the Harris Center Helpline Crisis Line is very important, 713-970-7000. And then you have the suicide hotline, which is really important, 1-800-784-2433. It's a sheet here that I have a lot of different things on: meditate, yoga, your social isolation, so you need to find ways to talk with people. You need to share your information, call them. I know I talk a lot about talk less, talk more, text less. If you text and no one responds, pick up the phone. Sometimes you just need to hear that person's voice. Because a lot of times, I know when Ashley, people say, well, how did you know? It's just the way she sounds. You're in a room with your shades closed. You don't want to be engaged with the people that you used to do. You don't want to enjoy the things you want to be. And following parents, friends, look at the social media. Find people that you can get on the social media site, and they might not know, but you have someone monitoring what's going on in your social media. Because you feel they're grown, they're responsible. I remember someone said, aren't you on her social media? Oh no, she knows what to do. She's very intelligent, she's smart, she's doing well. However, I didn't know that this Tumblr that she was writing on, talking about dying, how I feel. And the one thing that really hurts me is why she couldn't feel that she could tell me the truth about the pain. What was really going on with you, Ashley, that you wanted to leave this world? Because I tell you, I've gotten down, I've gotten low, but I know weeping in the night, and I always say joy in the morning. Because you know, with resilience, things that go on in your life, you say, oh, it's too hard. I can't move on. I'm gonna give up. And that's one thing she wrote in her letter. She left a suicide letter that her father gave. I knew because she was a writer. I didn't find anything in January, but he left it on the bathroom counter. And it was a letter that she wrote about giving up. I should have never been born. Why didn't she have the strength to fight on? We'll never know, but with the Jadine Foundation, I share her story to tell you, you're feeling this way, you're feeling down, you're feeling hopeless, you don't want to be in this world, things seem too tough. Find a trusted person that you believe in, and you talk with them. You have your youth groups, your church, you have school teachers, your friends, you talk to them all the time, but they're going through a lot of things too. So you need to find some trusted person that can hold you and understand and be empathetic, because it's important to listen. It's important to engage in what they're listening.
Hello, I'm Heather Hernandez Cedillo with Reigning Strength Therapeutic Horsemanship here in Richmond, Texas. We're a Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship International accredited center. And I want to talk a little bit about equine assisted activities and therapies and the benefit in regards to mental health. Horses are a great way to experience some connection. Working with animals in general, but specifically horses, is a really good way to interact with another living being. There's no judgment. Horses are incapable of judging. They're also incapable of lying. They're 100% honest. So for our individuals that are have various mental health needs, just interacting with the horse can give them that opportunity to get that connection, that unconditional positive regard from the horse. So I'm here with Morales today. He's one of our equine staff members, and he's pretty incredible, pretty intuitive animal. And I would just really encourage you, if you're struggling with something, with depression, anxiety, if you're considering suicide, considering harming yourself, to reach out and connect. Make a connection, get involved with the program, whether you become a client or get out and volunteer, talk to someone, go interact with animals, whether it's a horse or dogs or cats or any kind of rescue. Be involved with some animals and get out there and connect. So here at Reigning Strength, we work with individuals with physical, cognitive, social, and emotional needs. And that's really broad. Some of our clients are survivors of abuse and violence, and maybe they don't come from a place where they're able to explore a trusting relationship with other human beings yet. But a horse can be a wonderful bridge to experience that connection and that trust in a safe environment. In order to interact in a positive way with the horse, you have to have a mutual respect and a trusting relationship. So that's one way that horses can really benefit. There's the empowerment aspect of working with a 1,000-pound animal and telling them to go right and left and stop and trot and maybe run at your command, and having that connection and that interaction is really empowering.
These guys is, they're relate to humans. They're not meant to be alone. They need a friend. They need that connection just like us as humans need connection, and these two are a great example.
Hi, my name is Craig Scott, and I'm a survivor of the first big mass school shooting that happened in our country in 1999 at Columbine High School. I was 16 years old and on my way to school with my sister, Rachel, who was 17. And like brothers and sisters, we got into a little fight and an argument, and I had been making us late to school a lot. I always had to have my hair perfect and made us late to school. And I was calling her some names, and we pulled up to the school, and I got out of the car and I slammed the car door shut on her, and I had no idea that that would be the last time that I would spend with her. I went to my classes and then to the library to study for a test, and I heard some popping noises coming from outside the school. It was near the end of the school year, and so I thought maybe some seniors are pulling a prank. School shootings weren't really a thing at that point in time. People didn't know about school shootings like we hear about them now on the news. So I thought maybe some seniors have brought some firecrackers or something to school. And then this teacher ran into the room. She was very frantic, and she was yelling at all of us to hide and get underneath tables. And so I got underneath a table, still not knowing what was really going on, thinking maybe this teacher was in on this prank. And two friends came alongside me, and I was hearing these popping noises get louder and louder. And the two shooters came into the school, and as they were approaching the library, I realized, hearing these gunshots, I realized this was serious. The library was the first room that the two shooters came into. And immediately I felt like an inner voice told me to be still. And so I became very quiet and very still. My two friends just started to freak out. And the shooters came over, and they were mocking or making fun of students before they shot or killed them. And they came over to where I was sitting, and they saw my friend Isaiah. Isaiah was one of the very few black students in my school. And so they started to, one of them called the other one over and started to make racial slurs at Isaiah. And Isaiah, they pulled Isaiah out, drug him out from underneath the table, and he was then tried to back up, and the last thing that he said was, "I want to see my mom." And they shot and killed Isaiah, and they shot and killed my buddy Matt, and they left me underneath that table. My ears were ringing so loud from the shotgun blast, I thought they were bleeding, and I thought I was going to die. My heart was beating so fast, I thought I was going to literally have a heart attack. And the only thing I knew to do is just simply to pray. And I asked God to take away my fear because it was too much for me to handle. Shortly after that, coming over to my area, the shooters left the library. They left 10 students dead or dying and over 20 wounded. And I was frozen with fear, but then I felt like I heard God speak to me and tell me to get out of there. And so I was the very first student. I listened to that voice. I was the first student to stand up. I looked around. I saw the shooters were gone. And I yelled at everyone, let's get out of here. I turned to help a girl that was behind a desk behind me that was rocking back and forth, her shoulder gone from a shotgun blast, and helped to pick her up. And a group of us ran out of an emergency exit, and there's a police car outside. We all got behind that police car. As soon as we got behind that car, the two shooters came back into the library and started to exchange gunfire with the police. And I realized we got out of there just in time. And I can't describe, I was so happy to be alive. I was just, when I was in that room, thought I was going to die. And then when I escaped, it's like I was alive. I had my life. At the same time, I felt bad. I felt guilty for leaving my friends behind underneath that table. And they were, I really didn't know if they were dead or dying. I didn't know for sure. They looked dead to me. But when I ran out, I helped carry that other girl, and I thought they were gone. But I felt bad behind that police car. And then other police cars began to come by and pick up students and take them to a nearby street that was safe. And right before I left, someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, I think there's a girl that's been shot over there. And I looked out from behind the police car, and it was my sister. That was the worst day of my life. But from it has come the most purpose in my life. And that's one of my big messages to teenagers today. You're going through something painful, but if you deal with it right, it becomes something that makes you stronger and deeper, and it becomes the very thing that leads into your purpose. I'm so thankful for some of the hard things I've been through, because it's equipped me to now help other people who are dealing with their pain. I'm glad for the hardships at times. Now, when I'm going through them, I'm not. It's hard. It sucks. But after I get through it, if I dealt with it right, I'm thankful for it. The biggest thing that Columbine taught me was the value of people. And I wish so bad I could go back in that car with my sister. Instead of yelling at her and calling her names, I wish I could tell her I love her. But I can't do that. And so I learned how important people are. Now, before the shooting happened, I didn't care about kindness or compassion or really how I treated other people. Mostly I cared about trying to be popular, or trying to be cool, or trying to be seen with the right people. That was what was important to me, trying to be with the right cool people at school. But my sister wasn't like that. She didn't care so much about popularity or trying to be cool. She cared about real friendships, and she also really cared about helping people that were hurting or that were on the outside. In fact, 1 month before she was killed, she wrote an essay in class. She titled it, My Ethics, My Codes of Life. And in it, she talked about her values and beliefs and her ideals. And she said, I have this theory that if one person will go out of their way to show compassion, then it will start a chain reaction of the same. And people will never know how far a little kindness can go. And then she ended her essay by saying, you just may start a chain reaction. So I started traveling around and speaking in schools and sharing my sister's story. Because after the shooting, I started to hear all these stories about things that she had done for other people, little things that made a big difference. Sitting alone by a girl who just lost her mom in a car accident, who usually sat all alone at lunch. Standing up for a kid with a slight disability that was getting made fun of at school, and she stood up for him. To helping who's now a good friend of mine, a guy who was homeless, and just befriending him, and they ended up sharing a journal together through a youth group. She wanted to reach the unreached. She wanted to reach out to people that nobody else thought had value. And so my dad and I started a program called Rachel's Challenge. It's still going strong today. It's in a lot of schools. Maybe you've heard of it, or maybe you've heard about my sister, Rachel Scott. There's a movie that's been done, books that are written, and this program in schools. But she was just a normal teenage girl. But she lived her values. She lived out what she really believed. She had faith. She had compassion for people. She treated people right. And so I travel around and still do and share her story in schools. She kept a lot of writings and journals. She had 7 journals at the time of her death. Some she had between her and God, some with friends, and some just on her own. And she did poetry and artwork. And in one of them, she said, "Don't let your character change color with your environment. Find out who you are and let it stay its true color." Find out who you are and let it stay its true color. Every person out there, every person has value. It's inherent, built in within them. It's not based on what they look like, how much money they have. It's not based on how cool they are. It's not based on even what they do. It's inherent, it's built in. My determination was the 2 shooters at Columbine, the guys who killed my sister and my friends, they wanted to make the biggest negative impact they could at my school and kill as many people as they could. They wanted to become notorious for doing this awful thing. So I became determined that I was going to make a bigger impact than them, but in a positive way. And so that became my determination. What's your determination? How have you been wronged? Are you just going to let that anger lash out towards anybody around you? See, we're talking about a lot of things in this documentary, but we're talking about mental health. And it's all connected. Depression, anger, sadness, anxiety, fear, all these things. It's all connected. It's all happening in the same place, our brain. And so learning how to make these emotions work for you. I went through a lot of depression after Columbine. I had nights I couldn't sleep. And I've had some very down times where suicide crossed my mind. And I was blessed enough, though, to have a deeper knowing of who I was. And that even though at times when I felt worthless, even at times when I felt so down, I didn't want to get up, I didn't want to wake up, that deep down I knew that I had value. So if you're out there and you're dealing with depression, part of depression is just being sad. You're just sad. You just feel the negativity and you feel worthless. You feel like you don't have hope. You don't have hope that things can get better. You don't have hope that you can get better. But I really believe that that's a lie, and that there's a deeper voice that if you listen to within yourself will tell you that you're an incredible being, fearfully, wonderfully made, that you have tremendous value. It's a basic concept. And whether you're talking about it from a spiritual, religious, or psychological point of view, psychiatrists and psychologists, they agree. How you see yourself is so important.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Sandy Bond Chapman. I am the founder and chief director of the Center for Brain Health and a distinguished professor at the University of Texas at Dallas. I founded the center, just to tell you a little bit about what we do here, almost 20 years ago as a research institute. Think about this, brain health was such a new concept 2 decades ago that we literally got a trademark on it because people still do not think about their brain in health. Our brain, which is the most complex entity in the known universe, is the only part of our body that we only think about after something bad happens, a brain injury, a disease, or you're diagnosed with something. But guess what? The science of neuroplasticity tells us you can do more before anything bad happens to build capacity, to build reserve, to build resilience from the get-go. And that's really what our unique focus is, and it's unique around the world. Because even when people say we're focused on brain health, they really still are looking at what happens after something goes wrong. So that's what's unique. So I started the center. We grew from really a team of about 27 scientists, research clinicians to over 125. And from that, we were looking at how can we begin to get the rigorous science behind what it means to build brain health. So we wanted to look at brain imaging. We wanted to look at complex cognitive thinking. We wanted to look at psychological well-being, social connectedness, and really your whole real-life function. What's the science of that when people get better? And so that's what we've been focusing on for 2 decades. And now we have the science, and we're translating it. So we opened the Brain Performance Institute almost 4 years ago so that we could translate it to veterans and active duty military and law enforcement officers, teenagers in school, school teachers, people everywhere. Who doesn't need better brain health? That's what we're doing. And then we opened the Brain Health Imaging Center where we're uniquely looking at markers of the brain getting stronger. So why is it, think about this, that people still have so much stigma about their brain? And you know, as we work with high-performing military, they're like, okay, from the body down, we'll build capacity, but the neck up, hey, ma'am, they say that's the no-fly zone. Because people are always afraid that you're going to tell me what's wrong with my brain. And we are what I call category breakers. We're creating a whole new category of health, a category that's defining what it means to build capacity, to build resilience, to build reserve. But if something happens and you do get diagnosed with something, how can you intercept that as soon as possible? How can you rebound from it? And how can you be the strongest version of yourself? And it's not just a small window of time, it's for the rest of your life. Neuroplasticity is the greatest gift that we've been given. And it is that our brain changes moment by every single thing that we do. That's a gift, and it's also a curse. Why is it a curse? Because guess what? About 50% of what we do is bad for our brain. So we really have to think about and know the science of what's good for our brain and what's bad for our brain. And that's what we're doing here at the Center for Brain Health. So we're defining this category of health, and it truly is kind of a higher level of category of health. You know, when people think about their brain, they're always like, well, depression, stress, anxiety. Well, that's one component. It's one silo. But brain health is so much more. It includes that, but it's more than that. It includes your clarity of thinking. It includes your psychological well-being. Fortitude is what we call it. And it also includes resilience, your social connectedness, your purpose in life, and what is it that makes you the best person of who you are. So a whole new category of health is what brain health is. And what we're doing is destigmatizing it. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to go to that Center for Brain Health, the people are going to tell me how bad I am, or I'm afraid you're going to tell me I don't have a brain, is what some people say, or that I'm not very smart. But every single person can be smarter than where they are now, and they can build capacity. And that's what's exciting for us, both as a scientist, a clinician, and really someone who cares about how each one of us can contribute to the world around us in the most important way possible. So we're category breakers. We're also what I would call a little bit radical. We challenge the status quo because we have been stuck far too long in this outdated notion of the brain and think IQ is fixed, or if you get a diagnosis of ADHD, it's fixed, or if you have a learning problem, it's fixed, or if you have XYZ. The individuals, and we've worked with almost 100,000 individuals now, showing that they can improve the capacity of their brain, whether in health, but also in injury and disease. And they say, I love what you all do because so many of the places we go, it's all about labeling, which disables you and it enables you. It enables you by not making you more of what you can be, but when you see what's the capacity building, you empower us.
Hello, I'm Dr. Brenda LeVar. I'm the president of the board of NAMI Greater Houston. But what I want to talk about is NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI as an organization is more than 40 years old. We have affiliates all over the country. We have more than 300,000 members, and we are NAMI Greater Houston here locally, but our affiliates range in all the areas of the state. There are 29 different affiliates in the state of Texas alone. But NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is really a group of families and individuals with serious mental illness who have decided to come together to do a number of things. One is to support each other. One is to be sure that there's education about mental illness. And 3, to advocate for the people who may be suffering and families who may be suffering because of the illness. So just to let you know a little bit about our advocacy work is not only at the local level, but at the state level here in Texas, because we have a state affiliate, NAMI Texas, and actually every state has an affiliate. And we have a national organization that has its main office in Arlington, Virginia. So we work at the state level, at the local level, and at the national level to ensure that those things that are most important to all of us, and there are a lot of areas of need, those things that are important to all of us are addressed. And what we do by coming together is to ensure that people feel supported, that they know that if there is one thing they're not, is alone. Because mental illness affects 1 in 5 people. That's right. If you counted 5 people sitting around you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least one of them has been affected by mental illness. So whether it was with a child, whether it was with an adolescent, whether it was with an adult, everybody has come in contact with the need for services to support individuals with mental illness. And of course, supporting their families. Because the families, like all of us that are part of NAMI, realize that it's not just that you're not alone that's important, but it's important to know where do you get access and how do you get access to the services that your particular family member needs. And now I'll turn it over to Neil Sarahan. Dr. Sarahan is our executive director here at NAMI Greater Houston to talk a little bit about the programs that we offer here.
As with many of us, our involvement with NAMI is about personal lived experience with mental illness. And when we talk about serious mental illness, a lot of times people forget about the fact that the major mental illnesses that are being experienced around the country are anxiety and depression. This is very, very important because we are living in a time when anxiety and depression are the norm. Anxiety and depression are the largest causes of timeout and loss of productivity in the business sector, and that was before COVID. So when we talk about serious mental illness, I want us to have the whole framework of schizophrenia and bipolar and depression and anxiety, and to understand that in this culture we are enormously challenged. All of us are vulnerable, and we are enormously challenged at this time with the mental balance that all of us need to proceed in our life.
Hi, I'm Tessa Stuckey. I'm a licensed professional counselor out of the Houston, Texas area. I work mostly with teenagers and parents to understand what is going on in today's world and how it has contributed to the rise in teen depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. When I started working as a therapist, I thought I was going to be this really cool therapist working with teenagers, and they were going to come to me with all their issues and problems that I went through myself when I was a teenager. And they were dealing with some of the same problems, but their go-to answer was dark and heavy. It was about suicide. It was about self-harm. And it didn't match up everything I had known suicide to look like, and self-harm to look like, and deep depression to look like, and I got so confused. At first I thought I was being a bad therapist and I needed to dig deeper with my clients to figure out what was going on. There must have been some sort of trauma or abuse or severe mental illness. But the deeper I dug with them, the more I found it wasn't like that at all. It had become a mental health issue rather than a mental illness issue, meaning all of our kids are susceptible to what is going on in today's culture that could lead towards teen depression, anxiety, and suicidal thinking. So I went on a journey to figure out what was going on, and I found 6 contributing factors. And that's what I wrote my book about. For the Sake of Our Youth is about what's going on in today's world and how it's affecting our kids, and what we need to know as parents so that we can make changes to protect their future. Number 1 is that suicide and self-harm and even depression and anxiety has been glorified and romanticized. It has become an option that has been desensitized. It's not a big deal. They don't think anything wrong with finding out that their friend might have tried something over the weekend or has been hospitalized. They're completely casual about the topic of suicide, and we know that that's not okay. The number 2 reason is that they are living in a world where everything is instant. Immediate gratification is all that our kids know. I mean, think about when you were young and you had to wait to see a picture, right? It took so long just to see the picture. You had to finish the roll, get it developed, wait for them to call you to tell you that it was ready, then drive back to the drugstore to go pick it up, and then wait until the next day to show your friends the picture that you wanted to show them. That whole process now takes a couple of seconds, depending on what filter the teenagers use and all that. All they know is instant. They don't have to struggle through anything. They don't have to wait for anything. They are living in a world where everything is so convenient, and that comes from technology. Technology is a beautiful thing, but we are giving a little too much to our kids, and they don't know how to struggle through anything. Then when they hit their teenage years, that's filled with all those wonderful things called hormones, they experience real emotions for the first time, really heavy emotions, and all they want is an immediate fix. And we know as adults that there's no such thing as an instant fix for feeling better in emotional distress. The third contributing factor is attention seeking. So we know this to be very real, right? We've seen people who have talked about things that maybe aren't happening to them as heavy as they want you to think that it is, all for attention. Attention really is just wanting to feel important and feeling valued in this world, and that's natural and human, and that's okay. But what's happening with the fact that suicide and self-harm and intense depression, the fact that that topic has become casual and desensitized, it's become an option as a way to seek attention. So there's healthy ways and there's unhealthy ways to seek attention. And what we're seeing with teens today is they are leaning mostly on the unhealthy ways. The fourth contributing factor happening in today's world that is contributing to teen depression, anxiety, and suicidal thinking is loss of connection. Our kids are growing in a very, very lonely, isolated world. And that's mostly due to being addicted to their screens or thinking that they're connecting with someone through social media. And what really is happening is they're getting a huge dopamine rush, but no oxytocin. And we need oxytocin in order to feel truly, truly connected and bonded with someone. I'm also seeing more than ever parents who are disconnected because they themselves are addicted to their screens. And so when our kids are trying to hang out with us or trying to connect with us, a lot of times parents aren't available either. And so parents have to do their part in putting their screens down as well. Loneliness is an intense, powerful emotion. And a lot of times when we're lonely, we don't think clearly and we do things that aren't very healthy, which goes into the unhealthy attention seeking. One of the ways kids are seeking attention in an unhealthy way is through social media. Again, I'm bringing up the phone. Social media has 5 big problems with it. Unrealistic comparisons to other people, social life being on 24/7, cyberbullying, no need to connect face-to-face anymore because they know everything going on in their friends' lives, and screen addiction that I mentioned earlier. Social media has taken over, and we as parents are overwhelmed trying to keep up, but our kids are fast-paced and a lot of negative things are coming through with the social media stuff that as parents we need to stay aware of and wake up to so that we can protect our kids and their emotional well-being. And the sixth contributing factor is overwhelming pressure. Our kids are living a very fast-paced life. They're getting very little sleep due to screen addiction. They're trying to keep up with their other friends with those unrealistic comparisons on social media. And they're adding that internal pressure for themselves, trying to be perfect in this world. And it's impossible to be perfect. Not to mention, parents are adding a little bit to that, trying to expect them to do all the things, and be everywhere all at once. So those are the 6 contributing factors. And what I like to talk to parents about is what they can do about those 6 contributing factors. So the biggest problems kind of piled into 2 for those 6 contributing factors are lack of resilience caused by that immediate gratification and lack of connection caused by so much screen use. So when I talk to parents about the lack of resiliency, the biggest thing that I say is, number 1, don't let your kids, no matter the age, have a screen during a time of boredom or distress. We want them to struggle through a little bit and have some time to see that they have the strength to get through something. And that starts really young. If you have a 15-year-old, absolutely, but even like a 2-year-old fussing in the restaurant, you don't want to hand them a screen so quickly because that's what they lean on. That becomes habitual, and that's all that they know. And then, like I said earlier, when they get a little bit older, they don't know how to struggle through anything. Also, more than ever, I'm seeing parents who have become lawnmower parents. And a lawnmower parent is a parent who just clears the pathway so there are no obstacles for their kids. And our kids aren't going to learn how to get through anything if we don't allow the failure, the struggle, and the risk. As parents, it's our job to sit back, sit in that discomfort a little bit. It's so hard to do that. It hurts us to see our kids hurting. But when we let our kids hurt, when we let our kids struggle a little bit and we hold on to that discomfort ourselves, we are signaling to our kids, you're strong. You can get through this. I trust you. You are smart enough. Whenever we go, nope, I got this. I'm going to do it for you. We're really saying to them, you're weak. You can't do this. Let me take care of it. Of course, intentionally as parents, that's not our goal. We want them to feel strong and independent. However, we're not allowing them the opportunity to do so. So my biggest advice for building resilience is letting our kids struggle, especially without screens. For connection, it starts at home. As parents, we need to put our phones down. And I know we have to use our phones sometimes, right? So what if we have to answer an email or a client texts us and we have to get back to them? What I always tell parents is, 1, try to stay off your phone when your kids are home or when you're around your kids. So wait until after they've gone to bed or wait until they are at school to get on your phone. Number 2 is avoid the mindless scrolling. And so this is good for all ages, not just for parents, but mindless scrolling doesn't have any benefit. There's no productivity to mindless scrolling. So teenagers, parents, if you are on your phone a little too much, be aware of why you're on your phone. If you're getting on because you're bored, not a good time to do it. You're gonna feel emotional distress after you put that phone down because you're feeding the phone addiction. But if you get on for purpose and productivity and benefit, say you need to email your aunt in New Jersey, or you need to check to see what time someone is supposed to come over tomorrow, that's fine, that you're getting benefit out of that. But anytime we're mindless scrolling on TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram, we're gonna face those 5 problems with social media that are gonna affect our hearts a little too much. And then for parents, I know you probably think your teenagers don't wanna hang out with you or they don't wanna talk to you. You probably get responses from them like, I don't know, or fine, all the time. The truth is, they do wanna hang out with you. They do wanna be around you. But you know what? They don't wanna be around you if all you're gonna do is lecture. This is coming from my own personal advice from when I was a teenager, as well as what I hear in my office every single day working with teenagers. You will not get anywhere with the connection. You will not get anywhere with your relationship with your child or your teenager if all you're doing is making it a lecture. Spend time with your child. Get in their zone. Make them feel comfortable. Do what they want to do. Take interest in what they're doing. And I guarantee if they feel comfortable and safe in that moment, they will start to open up to you. Just like going on a date. Typically, when you're on a date with your husband or your wife or somebody else, you don't sit there and just stare at each other waiting for someone to talk, right? Or you ask them a question and hope that they open up. You go do something. You go out to eat, or you go have coffee, or you go and play basketball, or whatever you like to do on dates or with your friends. Same thing with your kids. You want to connect with your kids in a way that is relaxing and comforting for them so that they feel safe to open up to you. Responding is listening to what they're saying first, validate the emotion you hear from them, and then coming back with your respectful response. It's hard sometimes when we're filled with fear and anger, but if you practice it, kind of like writing an email to your boss when you get upset about something and you don't actually push send, you reread it, you delete it, you rewrite it so that it's perfect. That's kind of what you want to do internally when you're hearing your child come to you about something upsetting. So with suicide being so common and prevalent in today's world, it's important to have open conversations with our kids. And I mean starting kind of young. And I know that that can get scary, but research shows that they're not going to just go and do it if you bring it up. They're already hearing about it at school. My oldest son is 9 and he's already heard about it at school. He's in the 3rd grade. So it's important to have these open conversations with them from the get-go. So if you have a little one, maybe 9 or 10, you can say something like, hey, have you ever heard of this word? And get a feel for what they know it to be. What is their understanding? What is their perspective of the word suicide or depression? And then you go off of that and you say something like, this is actually really scary for mom to talk about with you because it's such a heavy, dark topic. And I want to make sure that you're okay, but you can ask me any question you want. And I may not know all the answers, but I'm going to try. And you keep going off of that base of conversations to get a feel for what they think it is and how they're feeling.
Hey, my name's Evan Owens, and I'm here with Reboot Recovery, where we're overcoming trauma together so that we can embrace a brighter future. You know, so many of us, we deal with traumas in our lives, and if we don't ever fully recover, if we're not careful, that trauma can end up controlling our lives. And since 2011, over 10,000 people have overcame trauma by going through one of our trauma healing courses. But we want to invite you because now it's your turn. And we believe that anybody can overcome trauma by attending a Reboot course. To do that, you can just go to rebootrecovery.com and you can sign up for free to attend a course today. I think in culture today, there's so many people who have been through devastation, whether that's a bad car accident, a miscarriage, they've been physically abused. I mean, we have data around this that 1 in 6 adults now is prescribed a daily mood-altering medication. 1 in 5, I think it is, girls under the age of 12 is sexually abused. 1 in, I think it's like 12 or 15 boys is sexually abused. So we have a huge issue of trauma. And I think this term trauma sometimes kind of confuses us a little bit because people don't necessarily know, well, maybe I've experienced something bad, but I wouldn't necessarily qualify it as traumatic. But the thing about it is that trauma is subjective by default. Trauma by definition is witnessing or experiencing a terrifying or horrific event. And if you've lived very long, chances are you've experienced something that would qualify as traumatic. Matter of fact, data shows that over 70% of Americans experience something that they would label as traumatic in their lifetime. And so many of us, we deal with these things, and rather than acknowledging them and addressing them and dealing with them, we deny them. We stuff them down. You know, my wife, she is a master stuffer. She's the person, maybe you're like this, that you can go to your trash can in the house and you can see that the trash is piling up, and then you begin just to step down or to push down the trash, hopefully making a little bit more room for more junk that you can put on there. But eventually what starts to happen is that trash can fills up and it starts to spill out on the floor. And now it starts impacting not just you, it impacts the other people in your home as well. And that's what the way trauma works, is that we can stuff it and we can stuff it for a certain amount of time, but eventually that stuff starts to come out. And when it does, it doesn't just impact us. It impacts the people that we love. It can hurt our healthy relationships. It can make us turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms. It can make it really hard for us to get over symptoms. Maybe we think we're dealing with depression or anxiety or whatever it is, but maybe the real thing we're dealing with is trauma. As human beings, a lot of times there's 4 things that we do as sort of our default response to trauma. Our default response. And what I mean by default is these are things that if we don't apply certain disciplines, this is just where we naturally go. This is the lazy river. This is where we naturally end up. Let me walk through those 4 with you quickly. So the first thing that most of us do is we deny. We deny that the trauma is going to have long-term impact on our lives. Maybe we make excuses for the people who hurt us. Well, he was drinking, that's why he hit me. Or this person was this way, and that's why they hurt me in this way. Whatever it is, we make excuses. We dismiss or we deny that the trauma is going to impact us. And when we do this, we rob ourselves of a healing opportunity, because until you identify the cause, you can't identify the cure. And so we deny. The second thing that we do after we've denied is we start to cry. And this doesn't necessarily mean physical tears, although for some of us that will be how we respond. But it's when we start to feel this flood of emotions. It might be anger, it might be rage, it might be disgust, it might be terror. You know, maybe if you've dealt with something traumatic, you can go years and all of a sudden you're come face to face with the emotions. You're walking through a store and you come across someone and all of a sudden they remind you of an experience, and boom, there you are, all the emotions flooding your system, your brain. Again, that fight, flight, freeze response takes over. Maybe we're overcome by anxiety and fear, where we used to be maybe self-confident and self-assured. Now we live in this state of maybe I don't have what it takes because this person in my life has made me feel little and made me feel small. And so these emotions are extremely unpleasant. None of us wants to feel terror or disgust or bitterness or anger. We don't want to feel those things. And so we do the third step of the default response, which is we numb. So first we deny, then we cry, and then we numb. Numbing is the natural condition that all of us use to be able to keep from feeling or having to engage the pain and the loss of what that trauma took from us. The problem with numbing agents is that over time, any numbing agent, when used too often, it can either cause more problems itself or it becomes less effective. And so you think about numbing, right? Some of us will turn to escapism. We'll start disappearing into an alternate reality. Some of us will turn to more dangerous things like illegal substances, medications, abuse. Some of us will turn to endless types of self-help. We'll end up looking for answers, in any place we can. But eventually, all those numbing agents will start to wear off. And this goes to the last stage of what we do, which is we run. We run to anyone who's offering hope. We run to people. We run from, a lot of times, one traumatic relationship into another one. We run from one addictive behavior into another one. We run and we run. We run to buy things with money that we don't have and things that we won't even have time to use after we've bought them. And if we're not careful, we end up running. We can end up running for the rest of our lives. And we see this carnage, all this trash that's spilled out of our trash can around us. And we see a life that's now been marked by instability, by broken relationships, by addictions and poor coping mechanisms. And all these things start piling up. And we can lose years of our life because we've been busy denying, crying, numbing, and running. There is a better way. We can actually look to things that are going to help us heal, things that are going to heal us rather than further hurt us. So to give you some very practical steps, some things you can start doing right now. And of course, yes, we want you to go to rebootrecovery.com. We want you to register for one of our courses, or maybe you want to start a course in your community. I don't know, maybe your family does, whatever. Here's some things you can do right now. The first is that we need 3 ingredients to be able to overcome trauma and heal. The first ingredient is safety. The second ingredient is stability. And the third is support. Let me quickly talk through those. Safety. What is safety, right? You might think, well, no one's physically threatening me right now, so I am safe. You might be thinking that. But safety is much more than just physical safety. Safety is a feeling. It's an environment of trust. It's a place where we know that no matter what we share, the people in the room are not going to judge me or look down on me. No matter how horrific my past or my experience, they're going to show me grace. When people lead with grace, it's them saying, hey, whether you accept my advice or reject it, I still love you anyway, because I want the best for you. People who are safe people. Finding safety begins by finding safe people. And safe people don't lead with advice. They lead with listening and understanding, and then they follow with some truth. right? The other piece about safety is that safety enables us to be able to get out of the dangerous situation. Think about it like an earthquake. If an earthquake's going on, I'm not going to begin moving furniture and rearranging furniture while the earthquake is going on. My number one objective is to find safety. Maybe you're in your own personal earthquake right now, and if that's true, the number one thing you need to do is to find safety until the shaking stops. You do that by finding safe people. You look for people who have been through some things, who can say, hey, here's how I dealt with it. And here's a tip, especially if you're a younger person and you're watching this. A lot of times safe people are going to be people who are far older than you. They're people who have lived through some things, who have some life experiences, who can say, I've survived some earthquakes. Let me show you how to get out of this one alive. They're not people who are necessarily in their own personal earthquakes and can just jump into the pity party pool with you, right? These are people who have survived some stuff. The second thing is we look for stability. Stability is the environment where we're able to begin rebuilding. The earthquake has ended. Now it's stable. I'm able to go back into the home and look at the damage that's done by it, and I can begin to assess it, and I can begin to make some initial repairs. Stability is difficult for us because a lot of times, anytime we can feel emotional, if we're feeling depressed or anxious or whatever it may be, sometimes it can feel like we're very unstable. But stability is the mandatory ingredient needed for us to experience upward building. Imagine if we're trying to build a skyscraper and we don't have a solid foundation, how high could you build? And that's the case a lot of times, is we're trying to build without actually having safety. We're trying to build without having stability. Stability is something that happens over time. You can't rush stability. If you've dealt with something very difficult in your life, give yourself some grace. You're going to need a little bit of time before stability is possible. Just as if an earthquake, 30 seconds after an earthquake's done, I'm not going to go back into the house and start patching the drywall or repainting. That wouldn't make any sense. That would be crazy behavior, right? I would be in a zone where I needed some space to process what had occurred. You might be the same. But the second thing we need to find is stability. Stability happens by us building routines and by continuing to surround ourselves with safe people. The third thing you need is support. This is where an organization like Reboot Recovery steps in. We help you create an environment of safety. We help you find a group of people that are stable, who have been through some stuff, but then are going to be with you for the long-term journey. Because overcoming trauma doesn't happen in just one counseling session or in 8 counseling sessions or in one inpatient treatment. It doesn't work like that, because your symptoms are going to come and your symptoms are going to go. But what you're looking at is, how do I continue to find purpose in this pain? And that's where we get into support. Support now says, not only how do you continue to have long-term support, but how do you now use that pain of your past to go support other people? How do you go start helping other people? So the way that we break denying, crying, numbing, and running is by seeking and finding safety, stability, and support. And here's the trick. Here's the thing that most people don't want to hear, and this is the difficult truth. Hope isn't found by avoiding pain. Hope isn't found by numbing your problems. Hope isn't found by trying to make your life less difficult. Hope is actually found on the other side of perseverance. You see, when we persevere through something difficult, it builds our character. And when it builds our character, it enables us to be able to know where hope is produced. Hope isn't produced in numbing our behaviors. Hope is produced when we overcome the difficult thing. That's how we get to hope. And so if you're going through a difficult time right now, one, I encourage you to find some safe people. There are people out there that want to cheerlead for you. There are people in your corner who want the best for you. They want to lead with grace. They want to speak truth into your life, and they want to help you through this difficult season. Find those people. They're there. It may be hard to trust them, but they are there. But then also realize that just running from your problems is not going to help. You have to go through. You have to persevere. And as you persevere through those difficult times, as opposed to being crushed by them, instead of being destroyed, you start to be built up by them. You have character, and that character produces hope. And hope is what we all want. Hope doesn't disappoint us. And so I just want to encourage you, as you're going through this dark season in your life, maybe you or someone you love is going through a difficult time, you will overcome it. I'm a testament to that. I've seen tens of thousands of people through Reboot courses overcome trauma and embrace a brighter future. If they can do it, so can you.